The reality is, in the past, they got support from the King and the late Queen, and that they said they were going to go and make their way. They've lost Spotify, they've lost Netflix. They can't rely on the spare money forever, can they?
Is this the end of a chapter, potentially, Rhiannon? Because we've seen 4 or 5 years of them appearing on all these documentaries and all these shows.
Look, it still amazes me that it was 5 years ago that they decided to step away. And the Netflix deal, the Spotify deal, at the time we were all like, wow, OK, maybe they are going to find their feet and it's going to be OK financially. Because there was always this big discussion about how do they move forward without it looking like they're trying to hang on to the royal title and saying, look, we're royals, but we're not royals, and that's why we need to kind of sign up to these deals. But I think for them now, look, remember Netflix, what they really wanted out of them was that documentary that we got in the first instance, where we got that fly-on-the-wall perspective. We were all wondering, are they really programme makers or not? So maybe it was inevitable that this deal was kind of going to come to an end. Meghan's With Love programme, don't know what you two thought of it. It wasn't particularly my cup of tea, but look, you look on Instagram and there's that whole kind of thing. People want to kind of have that aspirational lifestyle, branding stuff to tune into. So I think she's doing okay with that. I think she's trying to be authentically her. She's using her social media now. But yeah, it's just fascinating. They have this very expensive lifestyle. They have to pay for their security, pay for that big mansion. How do you kind of keep the money coming in?
And also they had the opportunity because they got massive exposure with the documentary. It was, Netflix got massive exposure too. They would have been very happy with that because it was using their royal position, sort of monetarising their royal position. But there's only a limit that you can do with that. And I think that they haven't really come up with any other major ideas that are going to make them any money. So I think they had a few ideas, nothing really materialised, but this is the problem. And I think it's exactly what the King warned Harry about, if you, make sure you've got a good plan for your exit. 5 years down the line, they've done okay, they've made a lot of money, and Spare made him a lot of money, but is it going to be enough to sustain them? I doubt it.
You look at Meghan though, she's got her as ever brand, and look, every time I go on that website, everything seems to have sold out, whether it's a crepe mix or whether it's those dried flowers.
Maybe because they haven't made enough.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know exactly how much they're making of those products. But I understand that potentially for Harry now, there could be some kind of commercial project that he's working on. Don't know exactly what that is going to be. But again, it's making sure that it's not a bit naff and people don't look at it and go, oh, God, you're selling out. So I just think it's a really interesting but really precarious position for them to be in.
Well, it was precarious also for the royal family because, if they don't make any money from these things, there's always Spare 2 or Meghan 1, in terms of books.
You mentioned earlier that their main success was the 6-part Netflix documentary where they were talking about, the royal family, and talking about secrets, talking about their life. Whereas if we look at With Love Meghan. Now, there is a second series that's already been filmed, but if you look at With Love Meghan, it came apparently at 383rd in the global ranking, and the Polo docu-series 3,436th. The danger is, as we pointed out, that they could return, if they need to make any money in the future, return to a Spare 2, a Meghan 1, or another Netflix documentary.
The only thing is, you've got to look back to, what was it, about a week and a half ago now, where there were those peace talks. And look, I sort of hope, and I think many people hope, that maybe there is beginning to be those kind of open lines of communication between, at least between the aides, between kind of the King's Communications Secretary and some new members of Harry's team that have come in. So you would hope, and certainly talking to some people behind the scenes, I know that there are now suggestions that, it probably wasn't wise that he did that, half an hour interview with the BBC?
So Harry, though, wasn't it?
It was so Harry.
Yeah.
Like, I've done interviews with him in the past where he says, I'm not going to go there with personal stuff. You ask him a question and he can't help it. He immediately just opens up, and now he's unleashed, isn't he?
Maybe that's what got the ball rolling. Maybe the King did. He would have watched it. I'm sure he would have seen something of it. And he's a dad, and he may have thought, well, actually, he may have a point. You know, he's listened to his wife, Camilla, he's listening to his older son, both of which advise him against having anything to do with Harry, but you're still going to have a pang as a dad. You know, if you're not very well and you have no idea about your own mortality, you know, all you know is you're living with cancer, you're going to have certain things that you want to sort out. And one of those would be, you know, your son. And he's equally loves his son, you know, Harry, as he does William. And in fact, he was closer to Harry before all this happened. So I don't know, you know, Harry is shot from the hip, but maybe it sort of landed on the target somewhere.
They do live this peculiar life, though, don't they? Like, most of us have the odd falling out within our families, but we don't have aides that we fall back on to go, well, you go and sort bits of it out. So I thought it was really interesting that finally there seems to be at least this open communication between the King's team and Harry's team, which simply hasn't been there from all the conversations I've had. It's not been there. And it's kind of, I think, probably trying to get rid of some of the really unnecessary negative stories. Like, I don't know, for example, Harry's out on a job on the same day that his dad's in Canada, and immediately we're all jumping on it going, oh, Harry's snubbed his dad. When Harry doesn't know the diary of his father. So I think some of it is quite practical, not necessarily how we're going to have the photo op where father and son are embracing. Do you know what I mean? I think sometimes it comes down to very practical stuff of how can we try and stop like there being an own goal when it comes to negative
There needs to be a
stories.
bit of a campaign, an organised campaign, a bit like there was Operation Mrs. P. Beads. If they want to repair so that there was an acceptance again before they were at the Ritz together. I think there's been so much damage created by Harry and shooting from the hip as he does. And I think if they want to try to get a sense of closure over this, which is they do need it before there's any change of reign or anything like that. The last thing you want is a narrative going forward with King William not speaking to Harry and the whole thing becoming even bigger. So I think there does need to be some sort of closure on it. And they are starting to have those conversations, but you know, I still think they're a long way to go. I can't believe people will be accepting of Harry ever really having any formal role again in this country. I think he's trashed not only the crown, his father, his family, but in doing so, you're sort of disrespecting the people who pay for and are represented by the monarchy.
Guys, we've just got time for our quickfire questions, and I'm going to have to ask for very short answers if you can. Right.
Are you saying that pointedly at us? Can we give short answers? We'll try.
Queen Camilla chose Ovaltine and Club Biscuit flavour ice cream this week. But what ice cream would you serve to remember the royal family?
Bubblegum, Ross's from Southend.
Is that your favourite?
Blue. It's blue in colour. It leaves all their mouth coloured blue. It was
Great pictures.
It was my son's favourite. Bubblegum ice cream.
OK, Rhiannon?
Oh, vanilla.
Oh.
Well, you just can't go wrong, can you?
Sweet
You don't want to upset them.
Very good point. What would you buy Prince George for his 12th birthday?
Tickets to the Euros final. Actually, sorry, he doesn't need a ticket, does he? But anyway.
William's going.
Yes, William is going.
I'd buy him a Chelsea season ticket.
I think that's a good idea. And finally...
So I can see some decent football.
the world champions.
Not the Villa.
And finally, name 3 royals that you would like to spend a summer holiday with.
Oh, 3. Anne. I think Anne would be brilliant because you always need someone on a holiday who gets you up and gets you going, and I think she'd do that. Camilla, I think she'd be a bit of a laugh, have a bit of a drink with her. 3rd one. You can go for a 3rd one. Who?
Do they have to be living?
Nope.
Oh.
The Queen Mother.
Yes.
I met the Queen Mother several times, and I remember on her birthday, I told her I was going to Saudi Arabia, and she said, "You won't like that, it's dry," and she wasn't meaning the weather. And I think
amazing.
Princess Diana and who else? Prince Philip, yeah.
OK, awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that.